we'll just kick it off and see what you guys want to talk about today. Anything in particular on your minds? Uh-oh, are you guys going to make me do the talking?
Just give us a topic, Crystal.
I know. I asked for topics and I didn't really get any. So, give me a topic. Let's see.
Yes, Crystal,
Go ahead,
in-person
Lauren.
events. What are people doing with in-person events coming up?
Yeah, we actually we had a CED call yesterday, and we didn't really talk about the when because we've talked about that before, and it really varies across the country. Like I don't know if there's anybody here like in Florida, but Florida, a lot of the Florida chapters are having in-person or hybrid. Like Arizona, Texas, some of those warmer states are able to have stuff that's outdoor, a wider open area of space. I would say, and Emily, jump in if you feel differently. I would say 75% of the chapters are looking at the second half of the year, probably, August, September, October. I feel like I hear a lot for in-person events, unless it's outside. There's been, people talking about golf or like some outdoor activity things. The conversation we had yesterday was about the how, and this is where I think it's important for the boards to talk about is, are we doing virtual and in person? Are we going to put some limits or some kind of policies around in person and virtual, like what happens if you pay for a meeting room and food and everything, and then the day before half of those people say, oh, I changed my mind, I'm going to do it online. Those have kind of been the conversations that have been had. What are you guys talking about up in Jersey?
We're having our golf outing in June.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to move the food that was in the banquet hall outside. Mm-hmm. So that whole event is going to be outdoors. We're working with a venue, though it's very cooperative. Where we're kind of stuck is on certain events. I don't know if Angela would have brought this up yesterday. Like the events that would involve like our awards celebration, we can't figure out a date. Normally we would have had that in February, and we haven't had it yet this year. And my concern is that the longer we put it off into this year, it could impact next year, the date, the timing for subsequent years. But sure. We have not been able to come to a consensus yet. We actually, our chapter sent out a survey to our members, and it asked in part, your comfort level with outdoor events, with in-person, outdoor, indoor. And of course, that came back that the outdoor events, people were very, overwhelmingly in favor. People want to get out and do outdoor events. The indoor events was a little bit less comfort level, but still, majority still said they wanted. But what was interesting, though, is that the question as to the managers, for example, is your company preventing you? Would your company prevent you from that? And 96% said no.
Oh, that's great, because on the other coast, I don't know if there's anybody here from California. California struggled with some larger companies saying that because there's some legislation in California that's saying that your company, they could file a workers' comp claim against the company if they do contract COVID, and it could be related to work. I don't know all the details of that, and I'm certainly not a lawyer, but that's something that they've been dealing a lot with on the West Coast. So that's good that you're not dealing with that, Lauren.
Not yet.
Not yet.
The challenge with that is proving where it came from. You can get it at a gas pump, grocery store.
Exactly.
Whatever, so.
Exactly. So what is what have any of you had any of those conversations about like hybrid or kind of policies related around coming back to in person?
We've discussed it, considered it, decided very quickly not to attempt the hybrid due to limited staff. I mean, it was challenging enough. We had a very successful annual conference, and that went well. But the hybrids, trying to set up a remote and the in-person was a little bit of a challenge. We're deciding right now what we will do. Ours is set for August, our state conference. Mm-hmm. And we're deciding right now if we're going to keep, right now it's scheduled in person from the venue we had last year. They allowed us to carry it over a year to wait and see what happened. But now we have to decide, are we going to go in person? We have a lot of people that are still just squeamish about not wanting to they want to be in person, but they don't want to be in that large of a group event. So they'll probably do more of a council event with maybe 20 or 30 people, but not with our 300, 400 people.
Yeah, makes sense.
We're doing a survey of our chapter to see what the feedback is from the membership before we make that decision.
Chris, question for you. So totally understand and support the, limited staff, and, it's a heavy lift to do both in person and virtual, but I'm wondering, are you still going to continue to have some online options for education in particular for those people that wouldn't travel or don't want to be in large groups?
We are actually revamping our council structures traditionally been geographic because you get everybody together at a, event venue
Location.
or whatever. We've actually increased our educational offerings since COVID because we're able to reach more people, smaller topics, more niche topics that you don't have to get a big draw from, and we can do it statewide. So we're actually starting to kind of think of councils in more of a specialty type of way of on-sites or large scale, or, we have the coast and the mountains that both have a lot of second home owners. What issues affect them that we can talk about in both places without it being specific to the ocean or the mountains, but we can talk to more people. We're reaching geographic regions that we've never reached before because nobody would drive 2 hours for a 1 hour, hour and a half educational session.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I was hoping you were going to say, because some chapters, I'm concerned that if they're not going to do hybrid, that the virtual will fall off. And I'm glad that you're talking about having two separate kind of tracks, if you will.
Right. So like I said, our councils they're still focusing and thinking geographically for things that affect people in their areas, but they're then opened up statewide. We're doing our law day actually Friday. Normally you get, I don't know, it's 4 or 6 credits overall, but you can attend 4 classes during the day of if you attend the event on site. We are recording all of the events, and we're actually charging a little bit more for our law day because you can go back and do on demand after the fact and get all 12 sessions as opposed to just for the day of.
Cool. Any other ideas of how you guys are attacking both the virtual and in person, or kind of moving in the direction of in person? Melanie, I think you just took yourself off.
Yeah, I keep doing that, and then it's not the right time. But we've postponed our spring conference until July, but I know our mountain conference that we did last year for part of the virtual set, we actually were able to hold that in person at a little smaller capacity, but our room size, I know the hotel allowed for us to, by virtue of their systems or whatever, stream the educational portion of that. And so we had a classroom, it was limited to 60 people for the classroom, but people either at home or within the hotel that couldn't actually make it into the classroom. So it was not quite hybrid, like the whole conference was not quite hybrid, but to offer that educational portion as a hybrid option. And then that was something that when I know that Bridget had put on our course to say how we had kind of pivoted from our spring conference from last year, got pushed into November, got pushed multiple times. But we separated our classes, right, and did those as a virtual option, and then we couldn't hold the conference. But even we thought we may be able to still do the conference trade show portion in person up until 3 days before, but we had already made the decision to split the educational portion of the conference off virtually. So we're still keeping an eye out for July and potentially doing something like that if necessary for our spring conference for this year. And then, yeah.
What software are you guys using for your virtual breakout scenarios?
Well, so for those 2 conferences that I was talking about, I mean, the fall conference, that was by virtue of the hotel, and so I'm not I don't recall. Bridget may know what they used, but then our our spring conference was just Zoom. We just found that to be the most effective and easiest to log in for everybody and all.
And
of
you
that.
didn't have exhibits, so it was just educational content.
That was just the educational content
Right.
portion. And then if you had not attended Chris, we also talked about our last pivot thing that we had done for sort of the trade show portion was to allow for business partners to have their own office hours that we pushed out to membership, and they set up their own Zooms or whatever. And then we pushed that information out to our membership, and so they could jump into those virtual office hours throughout the day. That was supposed to be our trade show portion of the event.
Okay. We used Hopin, which is designed for, you know, main stage scenario for your opening remarks and all that, lunchtime presentation. You can set up the breakout rooms, and then we had the exhibitor hall where you were able to pop in and out of the exhibitor halls and play bingo and do all those things that they do. So it went really well. It's what we're going to use on Friday as well to allow our vendor booths, because then we're still able to collect that revenue from those rentals. So.
Okay.
I think, you know, Lauren and a couple others of you have mentioned surveying the membership. And as vaccine distribution gets more widely spread, I know that's different in every part of the country, but it seems to be picking up here in the DC area. So, you know, as that changes, I think people's comfort levels may change too. So you guys might want to put into place a plan, you know, to survey people, you know, once a month or once every 6 weeks or something like that, because I think that may change people's feeling on being in close proximity as well.
Yeah, and going along with that, I actually today heard it's an interesting idea from the Georgia chapter, and they're going back to in-person. They're having their first in-person event, I think, in 2 weeks. And they're doing a system where they're having armbands, red, yellow, and green, measuring people's comfort levels. And so red would be, you know, stay 6 feet back, you know, I'm not comfortable. Yellow would be like fist bumps are okay. And then green would be hugs, you know, are okay. So I thought that was definitely an interesting approach. So I thought I would share that as well.
Yeah,
I like that concept.
I do too. I was going to say another thing that we actually just sent out today, speaking of surveys, that I thought was really beneficial for membership. So we did this for our business partners, sent out a survey to management companies to ask, are your offices open? Are you allowing for stop-ins? Are you allowing your staff to attend outside events? And can we share this information with business partners? It was a super simple survey, but our business partners are like, I don't know, can I go to people's offices, right? And so I thought, well, we did that, and I thought it was fantastic.
Kind of avoids that awkwardness, and I think that's what Georgia was saying. You know, sometimes you're like, I'm not sure what what I'm supposed to do here. So that was
that's that kind of concept is great. I know for me, even I've thought about going, to events in person. It's so customary for a lot of us to greet each other with a handshake or a hug or kiss on the cheek or something like that. I feel like that's pretty common in our industry. And, as a staff person or a leader, I don't want to be like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of awkward. So to be thinking about those things, is important.
So for the national conference in Vegas this year, that may be a good thing to.
Yeah, I think we should share that, Emily, with our conference team. Yeah, because there's definitely going to be different comfort levels there.
Definitely.
And that may draw some more people because they will be able to passively show their comfort level and hope everybody else will respect it versus expecting, or no, people not having any idea.
Yeah. I like that idea too.
Yeah, we're doing our thing now. I think we're going to decide whether or not we have a penalty deadline for our in-person event for the national or for the state conference. So I think we have to make a decision pretty soon. But as far as council events and whether or not we do those in person, we'll probably continue to do those ongoing surveys to see if comfort level increases.
Yeah. So one thing that I've learned with our conference, in talking with the conference team, and this seemed to be common and when talking with the CEDs too, is obviously the venue has a lot to do with it. And some of the chapters were saying, you know, working with a hotel, at least a lot of them have protocols already in place versus like a community center or something like that. And I know for Vegas, one thing I learned yesterday is for a larger meeting like, you know, we're planning to have, is we have to submit, not normally you have to submit for your exhibit hall to the fire marshal to approve the layout to make sure, but even for the classrooms we have to submit so that it shows that we are, you know, having social distancing available for people attending. So a lot of it has to do with the venues too, and how, you know, how accommodating they are and how much they'll work with you on the various setups and stuff.
Right. We're actually running a break even right now because depending on the size of the room and how many people you can fit in a room, and
Yeah.
we might be able to get the people to sign up, but if we can't legally do it based on government restrictions right now, we may just have to shut it down anyway.
Yeah, the other thing too that's interesting is our meeting planner, Holly, which some of you may know, she said that, you know, which makes sense, like planning for today is going to be different for planning in August. You have to plan for today because that's what we know, but it's anticipated as more people get vaccinated. There's going to be allowances for, you know, different accommodations, more people, maybe not as much distance required, that sort of thing. So that's a tough thing. And that's a tough thing I think on our staff too, is to kind of think about all the possible scenarios, because you're not just planning one event, you're planning multiple events within that event to accommodate what could be. Are you guys doing anything to, like, you know, sometimes it's hard, I think, for volunteers because you're not, because, you know, there's certain things that staff have to do as far as the technology and whatnot that maybe volunteers aren't as engaged with in making those kind of things happen with technology or hotel spaces and things like that. Have you guys talked with your staff or your board on how you can, you know, contribute or support the staff?
Yes.
You got any bright ideas to share with the rest of the crew?
I think right now they are more focused on making that system work for Friday, and then we'll be getting, you know, looking at national. That right, I keep saying national, state. We were talking about national all day yesterday. Looking at that kind of once we decide. I mean, they're kind of ready to go whichever direction. We just have to make the decision, and then the help will be ready. I think we have a meeting in 2 weeks to kind of make one of the decisions.
Chris said, go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris. I
was just going to say, and then we'll decide, you know, whichever avenue we decide to go with, then we will be able to offer some support depending on which direction that goes.
And I was just going to say, I think Chris said something pretty profound earlier, and that was we don't have the staff capacity to do something like that. And I think, like, yes, we should be trying new things. We have to adapt. We have to do all those things. But, you know, we may have something that's a great idea, but it requires so much staff time, it may just not be wise. And so I think that's fantastic that you guys are looking at your capacity, and maybe, yes, it's something that we can do 5 months from now, or, you know, something like that. But I think that's really good that you guys are looking at that and protecting the staff.
We are trying to figure out a way, whether it's through a particular app or, you know, just getting some good volunteers. We have looked at the virtual or the hybrid, and the challenge came down to the videoing in the rooms. So what we do with most of them is they pre-record the presentation. And like Friday, it's a 70-minute block. They pre-record 40 to 50 minutes, and then the remainder is open questions live, or the questions that have come in through the chat. But to try to avoid issues with technology on the presenter's side, we have that part recorded. So part of the challenge is if we're going to do a hybrid and it is going to be a live presentation, getting video, because some of the presenters like to walk around the room, they like to get out in the audience, and just having a camera on the podium may not work. So you may have to have a videographer. We looked into the expenses of that. That got a bit. So we may have to look at, a little less professional, a few people walking around with cell phones that have joined the meeting doing that sort of thing. So we just have to work out what that would look like. The other challenge was a combo hybrid for the vendor hall. Are we able to set them up in a room and then them also have a laptop or something there where they're able to chat with people individually, or do they just have the person that's handling the chat do it from their office and the people doing it live do it there, but now they're doubling up staff potentially?
Yeah, that's a concern we heard.
Yeah,
that's a concern we heard yesterday in talking with the CEDs, that they said, their business partners are saying, please don't make me, simultaneously be watching, my laptop for a chat and be in person. It's just too much on the member.
Right. So they either have to double up staff or
Yeah.
split between the two.
Yeah. So it's a lot. Yeah. I don't know. I personally think the exhibit hall, as we move back, if you're able to have in person with virtual or just choose to have in person, I think the in person is definitely the exhibit experience. I think those of us that have participated in the virtual exhibit halls, yeah, there's some cool stuff people have done, but it's a heavy lift. And probably not as impactful, so I think what Chris and Emily said about weighing what the outcome could be and what the lift is important.
Yeah, and I think also too, like not being afraid to outsource those things or give the CED permission to outsource certain things if you have the funds, because I can speak as a former CED, I would try to do all the things and learn all the things, and I would learn to try to be a professional videographer, or whatever. Not that that would ever happen.
Community association manager.
Yeah,
right.
but so I think just kind of giving them permission to maybe outsource some of those things would go a long way as well.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I've got another call that I'm gonna pop off too.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Appreciate your time today. So one other thing that I was kind of thinking about as we were chatting is, I hear around different parts of the country and feel it myself that, gosh, this gets old being on Zoom all day. And do I really have to go to that Zoom call? So there's a little bit of COVID fatigue, and I have your chapters, your boards or committees talked about that, or how to address that. What are you hearing out there?
We're definitely hearing that. I think some things, I was just on another standing committee call, so I apologize for jumping on late.
No problem.
But I think some of the interactions and some of the events actually work way better on Zoom. So even when when we are able to get back more in person on a regular basis for various events, there are certain things that will lend itself better to Zoom. More, sort of more casual interactions maybe, or things like that. And I think that you do get some people who wouldn't travel to the meeting and they're hopeful that things will continue this way. Maybe, maybe they're a little more introverted, or just their schedule and their timing of their meetings. So yes, there's definitely fatigue. I mean, more than an hour at a shot is tough to be staring at that screen.
Yeah.
And then back to back, trying to protect your time a little bit. And looking at, I'm reading the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown right now. And so trying to figure out what is essential versus non-essential and what can be, delegated and things like that. But I think that, I think some things will continue, I hope, because that'll be helpful to some.
So maybe looking at it, what I'm hearing you say, Tressa, is not choosing one over the other, but choosing which things may lend themselves better to in person versus virtual, and not trying to try to do both for everything.
Right. Yeah, we're the Southern Colorado chapter. We are. I'm involved in both, obviously, here in Colorado, but we're our first 3 meetings of the year. We do a monthly education luncheon. And so the first 3 were virtual. Starting in April, we're going to do a hybrid where we are going to have an option for registration in person at the location where we held all of our meetings prior. And it is a true luncheon. It'll be, obviously, it'll be socially distanced with masks and all that. We did Law Day that way last August. And we got a good turnout of people. We had to cap the maximum number of people at the event, and we did it via Zoom as well. So we had 2 separate registrations, 2 different pricing structures on the registration, and it worked well. And I think people are looking forward to getting back to that next month. We'll see how it goes, and I'll report back. But it'll be a choice. We want people to be comfortable with it, but also kind of get back together if we can.
That's interesting on the pricing. And John, I'm going to call you out here because I know Pennsylvania has made a choice to keep their pricing the same, whether it's in person or virtual. Will you speak to that a little bit and how that decision was made and kind of what went into that conversation?
So we've had these conversations probably for the last 4 or 5 years about whether we want to charge or whether we want to allow, whether it's homeowners or managers, to come to some events for free. And the board and Tony had kind of made a decision that we kept getting, especially when we did free events, we kept getting, 100 people would register and 50 people would show up because they didn't feel that they were getting that value. And so we did start charging, smaller amounts at first, and we have increased it a little bit. Tony put into place, I think before the pandemic, but definitely we, expanded it during the pandemic, is basically almost like a credit-based fee schedule. So if we're offering, 2 credits, then it's X amount of dollars. And really, it hasn't hurt our attendance. To kind of talk to your other point, Crystal, about fatigue, we've definitely seen some fatigue, especially probably in the last 3 or 4 months. But what we found, probably in the last 6 months of 2020 was that because we're such a big chapter, we're basically all of Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and Northern Delaware. We have regions like Chris was talking about. So we have a South Jersey regional committee, a Poconos, we have a Philadelphia, we have a Central Pennsylvania. And we found that people from Central Pennsylvania were attending the South Jersey events and vice versa because they found the topic interesting. So whereas nobody from Harrisburg was ever going to drive to Mount Laurel, New Jersey, we've had people participating. So in that regard, it helped attendance. So just to give you for an example, maybe we would have 50 people at a South Jersey event. So on the Zoom, we really weren't losing people. We had maybe 50 people, in some cases more. So it's worked out. And like I said, the charging people for those events, and again, it's minimal. It's usually like somewhere between $20, $30 for managers or for homeowners. It really hasn't hurt our attendance.
And then for going to in person, am I correct in saying that you're charging the same whether it's virtual or in person?
That's the plan.
Okay.
We've been talking about how we're going to do that. And, our conference is currently scheduled for June. And we're trying to figure out if we can do some type of hybrid where, like Chris was saying, we would pre-record the education sessions and then have someone there and try to, do a Zoom question. We haven't really figured that out yet, but that's kind of what we're working on right now. But yeah, the goal is that when we do start doing either hybrid or in person, it's going to be the same type of pricing schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Other topics? Emily, you got anything?
I dropped it in the chat too, but just wanted to say that I've been hearing a lot from the CEDs and some other presidents as well that board meetings and committee meetings have been going pretty well on Zoom because you're able to bring, if people are kind of spread out, within your area that you serve, they're able to attend more and, all of that. And you can kind of keep them on track and to the point, you know, on the computer. So I just wanted to add that in there as well.
I don't miss conference calls, I'll tell you that. I take a video call over a conference call any day.
Where everyone's trying to talk over each other.
Yeah, and then wait, what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. And you know that they're doing work or whatever, you know. So it's much easier to kind of know where people are when you're on video.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is great, and I will say, Emily, that we've had a tremendous amount of participation in terms of committee meetings. You know, whereas everybody used to have to drive to the chapter office, which in some cases could be an hour or more away.
For an hour meeting or a 2-hour meeting, yeah.
Turn around and drive back. It's really, you know, it really has increased attendance at committee meetings, and, you know, board meetings, we always had everybody show up, but committee meetings, it's really been helpful.
An interesting.
I think some of our board, I think on some of our board meetings, even after COVID is, you know, is passed, I think we're still going to have virtual. It's possible for a lot of the committee, like we had some committee members who said like they were only joining because they could go virtual, because they, you know, were depending on where the location was, like John said, the distance factor. So now we have people who are joining committees, and in some cases the board, who probably wouldn't have done so otherwise.
With volunteers, that's another topic that came up, is seeing an influx in volunteers in some cases, because people are like, oh, well, I can participate if it's on video, but I couldn't spend that 2 hours in the car going back and forth. Is anybody struggling with too many volunteers, and like how do we use these volunteers without having in person?
No. We didn't lose anybody, but we did not see a huge influx in volunteers.
Okay. Just greater participation from those people.
Yeah, on the committee. So there will always be, you know, I think, I don't quote me on the number, but I want to say, you know, we have about 130, 140 people on committees, chapter wide. And I think that's been fairly steady. But like I said, we see more of them show up at committee meetings now than in the past.
It's good.
Yeah, we had a lot of people put in for our board this year. We had
more than normal.
We had 4 spots, which was a lot also. 4 spots, we had 11 people put in.
Wow. Wow.
What do you attribute that to, do you think, Lauren?
It's the dysfunction on the board. That's the problem.
The leadership. Just kidding, Lauren.
No, if anything, it got better this year. We probably had people that were waiting, you know, in prior years. So let's not go into that. But I think also there were 4 spots. I mean, the funny thing is, so next year it's only going to be 1. I think the next 2 years each, it's only going to be 1 position and 2 after that. So 4 was unusual. I don't know. Maybe there were people waiting, maybe because of COVID, and we're doing the meetings online. We're doing so many events online. It's easier for people to participate. We just had a lot of candidates this year.
Were you able to take the people that weren't selected and place them in other roles, like committees and things like that?
They were on commit. Most of the people were on committees, but if they weren't, yes, we have said to them, you know, that they can apply next year to be on a committee. Yeah, we were able to, not in every case, but in most cases.
Yeah, because it, you know, keeping them engaged, it would be good since that's such a high volume.
Yeah, we're a busy chapter, so.
You are. You know, you guys have a great event going on this week. I was surprised you were not.
I was on it, and I actually jumped off to come on this call. We had an event from 12:30 to 1:30. It's our Women's Leadership Committee had, you know, because it's International Women's Week. So we have a week-long event, a retreat, which has a combination of education and networking events. We were in the process of one now, which is a good one. It was the ladies of our LAC, which is our Legislative Action Committee, including our, everybody who usually is on the LAC. So it's a good event, and we've been getting a lot of turnout.
Yeah, your CD, Angela, had signed me up, and the timing just hasn't been great, but I'm like excited about the content. You know, there was some really good content there. Hopefully I'll get to jump onto a couple of the last things.
Yeah, I've been back and forth.
Yeah. Which is another benefit of Zoom. You can come and go a lot easier than if you were in person.
Yes.
Half one, half of another.
Yep.
I don't mean to be a party pooper on Zoom, but I've found it a struggle. So we have new board members, right? And this is my 6th year on the board, and I'm having a hard time feeling connected to the new board members just because I don't know them personally. And so I think that that's a little bit of a struggle. So I've been trying to think about how we can make a personal connection, not meeting in person. Whether we maybe, I don't know, I'm thinking out loud right now, like schedule a call that's not a board meeting where we can just talk about ideas and thoughts and meet each other and personal likes and dislikes or something. But it makes me a little sad, right, that I don't get to sit with them and get to know them a little better.
One thing that I know some chapters have been doing just opening it up to their full membership, but you could do this with the board or just, one-on-one or something like that, is just having like a coffee and 15 minutes or 30 minutes of just, hey, let's get on and just chat and get to know each other a little bit.
We've done, sorry, my other thing, they're still trying to figure out how to run a meeting. About 3 seconds of her getting into the screen going, this isn't working, and then eating into, and I've tried to rejoin. So.
We've all been there, right?
Yes. So I'll watch that screen while this happens, talking about bouncing back and forth between meetings. We do our strategic planning thing in the fall, and this past fall was the first time we haven't done it in person for obvious reasons. We do it on Thursday and Friday. So what we did was Thursday lunch is normally all together. That's kind of the ramp up, the personal interaction like Melanie's talking about. We sent everybody a $25 DoorDash and had them order in their favorite food, whatever they wanted to do for lunch. And we started with the lunch event, just like we normally would. Everybody joined and talked about what they were eating, wherever their favorite restaurant was from all over the state, whatever was happening. And then we did Starbucks gift cards for the Friday morning breakfast, just like we would normally do in the room with refreshments and stuff. So, maybe that type of an add-on on either side of an event or a private issue, but that was something we did.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a good idea. Maybe just having a virtual lunch with the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with no business attached to it, just kind of get together and chat. Okay. Any other topics you all want to chat about today? It's good conversation as usual. Appreciate that. Okay, well, I think I had this scheduled till 1:45, so we're coming close to that. So if there's nothing else you guys want to chat about, we'll let you get back to your other meetings that you're watching. Right, Chris and Lauren?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, we will see you next month. If you need anything in between, feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to chat with you or help you out where we can. So have a great afternoon, and we'll see you real soon.